That feeling you get on Sunday night, where you look at your life and run the numbers, and the answer comes back, not enough. That feeling is lying to you, and I can prove it. I'm going to skip the pep talk. No think positive, no trust the timing, none of that. What I'm going to do is walk through the actual evidence, piece by piece, the way a detective would. By the end, you're going to see something about your own life that your anxiety has been actively hiding from you. It's been right in front of you this whole time, but you couldn't see it because the math was rigged. We're starting with when the feeling shows up. It arrives in waves. That's what makes it so effective. If it were constant, you'd learn to ignore it, the way you ignore the hum of a refrigerator. But it doesn't work like that. It arrives at specific times. Sunday evenings around 7. The day is technically still happening, but emotionally it's already over. You're on the couch or you're scrolling or you're staring at the ceiling, and it walks in without knocking. Monday's coming. And Monday means another week of the life you have versus the life you thought you'd have by now. It shows up on birthday mornings, too. The part before the cake, before the messages. The part where you're brushing your teeth and you accidentally do the calculation. Your age, minus your accomplishments, divided by some imaginary standard you absorbed from the culture without ever agreeing to it. The answer is always the same. Insufficient. It shows up at 11 p.m. when you open a social media app you told yourself you weren't going to open. Someone you went to high school with just bought a house. Someone from your first job just got promoted to a title you don't fully understand, but that sounds important. And there you are, in bed, in the dark, holding a glowing rectangle that's telling you everyone figured it out except you. Notice when it arrives. The feeling doesn't show up when you're at your strongest. It waits until you're unfocused, disengaged, between things that matter. It arrives when your defenses are down. The answer is always insufficient, because the equation was designed to produce that result. Who wrote that equation, and when did you agree to be graded by it? You didn't. That matters more than you think. The feeling of being behind assumes something enormous, and it assumes it so quietly that you never think to question it. That a track exists. One track, a shared timeline that everyone is on, moving in the same direction, at roughly the same speed, toward roughly the same destination, and you're failing to keep up. This assumption is so deeply embedded that it feels less like an assumption and more like gravity. Like it's just how things work. Except it was invented. The track was assembled piece by piece from a very specific set of ingredients. Your parents had a version of it. The age you should graduate, the age you should have a stable career, the age you should be settled. The culture had a version. The movies where the protagonist has it figured out by 30. The articles about founders who made their first million at 23. Your peer group had a version too. Whoever got there first became the benchmark, and everyone else became a variation of behind. Somewhere in the middle of all that, without anyone asking you, a track was built. It had milestones, it had a schedule, and it had an implicit finish line that nobody could describe, but everyone seemed to agree existed. Look, the track was never yours. It was handed to you, assembled from other people's timelines, cultural averages, and the general sense that certain things should happen in a certain order. You've been measuring yourself against a schedule you didn't write, for a destination you didn't choose, and calling the gap between you and it a personal failing. You inherited that equation, you didn't write it, and you're allowed to put it down. I want to look at the evidence you've been calling failures next, because that evidence tells a very different story. I'm going to be honest about something uncomfortable. Some of your failures were just failures. They hurt. They cost you time or money or confidence or a relationship. They didn't come with a silver lining stapled to the back. Anyone who tells you otherwise is selling something or has never actually failed at anything that mattered. But here's the distinction I want to draw. There's a difference between a verdict and data. You've been treating data like a verdict. A verdict is final. It tells you what something meant permanently. Data is raw material. It tells you what happened, and then you get to decide what to do with it. Your failures were data. The job interview that went sideways gave you information about what you actually want, or what you need to practice, or What kind of environment makes you shut down? The relationship that ended badly gave you data about your boundaries, your patterns, what you're willing to tolerate when you're afraid of being alone. The project that flopped taught you about your process, your timing, your assumptions about what people actually need. None of that data is comfortable. Some of it is brutal. But a verdict just sits there and makes you feel bad, while data can be turned into something. The person who has failed and examined the failure has something that the person who succeeded on the first try never had to develop: navigation skills. They know what it feels like to be lost and to find their way back. I'm not sure why we celebrate the people who got lucky on the first attempt more than the people who had to learn to navigate. But we do, and it's worth questioning. Before we go further into the evidence, though, we need to deal with the machine that manufactures the feeling in the first place. There's a piece of technology doing more psychological damage than most people realize. LinkedIn has a feature where it tells you when someone you went to college with has been promoted. Nobody asked for this feature, and yet it exists anyway, quietly doing tremendous damage. LinkedIn is just the most honest version of something that's happening everywhere, though. Instagram does it with lifestyles, Twitter does it with opinions, even your group chat does it in subtler ways. Someone mentions a vacation, someone else mentions a raise, and you sit there doing the math again. The structural problem with every single one of these comparisons is fundamental. You are comparing the full, unedited footage of your own life. Every outtake, every deleted scene, every moment of doubt at 3 a.m., every time you ate cereal for dinner because you couldn't handle anything more complex, to someone else's highlight reel, the version they chose to publish. The version that was curated, edited, and posted specifically because it made them look like they had it together. The comparison is rigged from the start. A hallucination dressed up as data. That's what you're working with. To make a real comparison, you would need to know the other person's full context, their debt, their mental health, their relationship with their parents, the thing they cry about at night, the goal they gave up on that you don't know about, the medication they started, the friendship they lost, the doubt they carry. You don't know any of that. You know their job title and their vacation photos. And from that fragment, you've constructed an entire narrative in which they are ahead and you are behind. You built a whole courtroom and tried your own case. And the key witness was a photograph of someone else's appetizer. So, if the comparison machine is broken, what does the actual evidence look like? Your anxiety is running a search with very specific parameters. It's looking for evidence that you're behind, and it is finding it, because that's what a targeted search does. It finds what it's looking for and ignores everything that doesn't match. Confirmation bias, and honestly, it has nothing to do with character. It's just a feature of how brains work under stress. When you feel behind, your brain goes looking for proof, and the world is full of things that can be interpreted that way if you're already convinced. A cluttered apartment becomes evidence of failure. An unanswered email becomes proof you're not keeping up. A birthday without a milestone becomes a verdict on your entire trajectory. Meanwhile, the search is ignoring everything that contradicts the verdict. The email you sent last week that you were nervous about, where you advocated for yourself, even a little. The conversation you had with a friend where you said something honest and it shifted the entire dynamic. The decision you made last month, the small one, the one you've already forgotten about, that quietly closed a door you needed closed. The Tuesday where you showed up even though you didn't feel like it. The morning you chose the harder option. Join our YouTube membership and get exclusive perks like early access to scripts, input on future topics about productivity, and connect with a like-minded community that gets it. Click join below and let's build your easier, more intentional life together. The evening you didn't send the text you would have regretted. The grocery run, where you bought the ingredients for a meal you actually cooked, which sounds trivial until you realize that feeding yourself well when you're exhausted is a genuinely difficult thing to do. Evidence that you're moving is everywhere. In your daily choices, your small corrections, your quiet refusals to give up on things that matter to you. The behind feeling has a filter on, and the filter only lets through evidence that confirms the verdict it already reached. The same life looked at without that filter tells a completely different story. And some of the most interesting evidence is hiding in the things that looked, at the time, like mistakes. I missed a bus once years ago. I was running late for something that felt important at the time, a networking event, the kind where you stand around holding a drink you don't want and trying to describe what you do in a way that sounds impressive. Missed it by about 30 seconds. Watched it pull away, stood there on the sidewalk feeling like a perfect illustration of my own inadequacy. So I walked. And on that walk, I ran into someone I hadn't seen in years. We talked for 20 minutes. That conversation led to an introduction, which led to a project, which led to a shift in my entire direction, none of which would have happened if I'd caught the bus. I want to be careful here, though. Missing buses is obviously not a life strategy, and every wrong turn doesn't have a hidden reward waiting at the end of it. Sometimes you miss the bus, and you just miss the bus, and you're late, and it's annoying, and nothing interesting happens. That's real too. What I've noticed, looking back at the map of my own life, and talking to enough people about theirs, is that detours have a better track record than people give them credit for. The person who had to find a new route learned something about navigation that the person who followed the map never had to. The failed interview that forced you to rethink what you actually wanted. The relationship that ended and left you alone long enough to figure out who you were without it. The project that went sideways and taught you what your actual process looks like, stripped of the idealized version. Those are real skills. You developed them because you had no choice, which honestly is how most real skills get developed. The payoff just hasn't fully landed yet, and that yet is doing serious work in that sentence. One of the most misunderstood signals in all of human experience connects directly to this, the feeling of being stuck. There's a difference between feeling stuck and being stuck. The difference is enormous. Being stuck means genuine standstill. No movement, no change, no forward motion of any kind. It does happen, but it's much rarer than people think. Feeling stuck is something else entirely. Feeling stuck is what movement feels like from the inside, in the middle of it, before you can see where it's going. Think about it. When you're in the middle of a real change, a deep one, the kind that actually rearranges things, what does that feel like from the inside? It feels like nothing is happening. It feels like you're spinning your wheels, like everyone else is moving and you're standing still. It feels, in a word, stuck. I keep coming back to the caterpillar and the chrysalis. Every cell is being reorganized in there. The entire architecture of what it is gets dissolved and rebuilt. Active transformation, the most active of its life. From inside the chrysalis, though, there's no view. There's no progress bar. There's no notification that says, transformation 67% complete. Just darkness and the feeling that nothing is happening and the question of whether it ever will. That darkness, that absence of visible progress, is the texture of change experienced from within, before it's visible from without. If you feel stuck right now, I honestly can't tell you whether you're in a chrysalis or at a genuine standstill. Maybe you are, maybe you aren't. What I will tell you is this: the feeling of stuck has never been reliable evidence that nothing is happening. The feeling is real, but what the feeling means is where people get it wrong. I want to talk about the person you used to be now, because I think you've been misremembering them. Think of a decision you made that scared you, a real one. A move you made, a job you left, a relationship you ended or started, a risk you took that you couldn't see the other side of. You probably remember that moment through the lens of everything that came after. If it worked out, you remember it as obvious. If it didn't, you remember it as naive. Either way, you've stripped it of the thing that made it remarkable, which is that you didn't know. You made that decision without knowing how it would turn out. You stood at the edge of something and you stepped forward, and you had no guarantee of anything. That takes real courage. That's the only way decisions ever get made. Every meaningful choice in your life was made with incomplete information. Every single one, the ones that worked and the ones that didn't. You never had the full picture, and you moved anyway. Your past self gets a bad reputation from your present self. The present self has the benefit of hindsight, which is a luxury the past self never had. And the present self uses that luxury to be unfair, To look back and say, I should have known about something that was, at the time, genuinely unknowable. Your past self was brave in a way that only someone acting under genuine uncertainty can be brave, willing to move without a guarantee. That specific kind of courage, a quieter courage than the one we celebrate in movies, less photogenic, but real. Yours, and you've been exercising it your entire life. You're still here, still moving, still watching a video about whether you're behind. The fact that you kept going through the uncertainty, through the failures, through the moments where the map was useless, that is the evidence. You kept going, you kept choosing, and that's the whole thing. Now, about the people you think are ahead of you, because what's actually happening there might surprise you. The person you're comparing yourself to, the one with the promotion, the house, the relationship that looks effortless in photos, has at some point in the last month done the exact same math you're doing right now. They looked at someone else, they measured the gap, and they came up short. I know this because of how the math works. It recalibrates. It finds new variables, always. The person who got promoted is now comparing themselves to the person who got promoted and got the book deal. The person with the house is comparing themselves to the person with the bigger house. The person in the relationship is looking at someone else's relationship and wondering what they're doing wrong. The math is a treadmill. It adjusts its speed to match yours, and you never actually arrive. I'm saying this because the game itself is the problem, not your position in it. From the inside, the person who looks like they've arrived is running the same calculation with different numbers but the same structure and getting the same answer, not enough. Catching up was never going to fix it. Even if you could magically close the gap, even if you woke up tomorrow with the job, the house, the relationship, the bank account, the math would just recalibrate. New gap, new comparison, same feeling. The problem was never where you are. The problem was always the math. An equation designed to produce insufficiency will produce it regardless of the inputs. So, what do we actually pay attention to instead? I think of this as the compound proof idea, and it reframes the whole picture. The things that are actually changing your life don't look like a promotion announcement or a before and after photo or a viral moment. They look like a Tuesday. They look like a conversation you almost didn't have, but you had it anyway and something shifted, even if you can't name what. They look like showing up when you didn't feel like it, which you've done more times than you've given yourself credit for. They look like the boundary you held, the morning you chose differently, the night you went to bed instead of going down the spiral. These don't register as evidence because they're invisible from the outside. And the behind feeling only measures impressive from the outside. It has no metric for quiet consistency. It has no metric for the decision you made to stay with something when quitting would have been easier. It doesn't count the days you held it together when holding it together was the hardest thing you did. These are the things that compound, though. I noticed this in my own life last year, looking back at 12 months of small, unglamorous choices and realizing everything had quietly shifted without a single dramatic turning point. The way water shapes rock, slowly, invisibly, until one day everything looks different and you can't point to the single moment it changed, because it was never a moment. It was 1,000 moments, each one too small to notice, each one doing real work. Your life, examined at the level of small, consistent choices, tells a story about someone who keeps showing up. That's a different narrative than the one your anxiety has been writing, and it has the advantage of being true. Everything so far has been building toward what I want to say next, and I want to say it directly. I think you clicked on this video looking for something specific. Maybe you told yourself you were just curious, or killing time, or you liked the title. Underneath that, I think you were looking for permission. Permission to stop doing the math. Permission to look at where you are and say, this is okay, without immediately qualifying it. Permission to believe that the gap between where you are and where you think you should be has nothing to do with your worth as a person. I get it. I get why that permission feels like it has to come from outside. Because when you try to give it to yourself, there's a voice that says you're just making excuses, that you're being soft, that if you stop feeling bad about where you are, you'll stop trying. As if guilt were a fuel source. As if the only thing between you and stagnation is the constant, low-grade misery of feeling like you're falling short. Guilt has never been a useful fuel source. Not once. The people who make real, lasting changes in their lives do it from a place of clarity. Clarity about where they actually are, stripped of what their anxiety insists is true. So I'm going to say this without hedging. You don't need to earn the right to feel okay about where you are. You've been earning it this whole time, in the choices you made under uncertainty, in the mornings you showed up, in the fact that you're still here, still looking, still asking whether you're doing enough. The asking is the proof. People who don't care don't ask, and people who've given up don't search for reassurance. The fact that you're still questioning means something is still alive in you that refuses to settle. And that's the mark of someone who eventually gets where they're going. That restlessness you keep treating as a symptom is actually the engine. I want you to take one specific thing from this, and we're almost there. The feeling of being behind is evidence that you care. Let me say that again, because it's the sentence this entire video exists to deliver. The feeling of being behind is evidence that you care, evidence that you want something, evidence that the gap between where you are and where you want to be is a gap you're paying attention to, which means you're the kind of person who pays attention, which means you're the kind of person who eventually closes gaps. Caring is the prerequisite for everything that matters. Every achievement you've ever admired in someone else started with this same feeling you have right now. The sense that things could be better, that they should be better, that the current state of affairs is temporary. That feeling is the engine. Worth asking honestly, are the people who've stopped feeling behind actually at peace? Or have they just stopped wanting things? Made peace with stagnation, which is a kind of peace, but probably not the kind you actually want. The fact that you still feel the ache of the gap means the gap still matters to you. And things that still matter to you are things that still change. You are in motion. The feeling that says otherwise is just the sound of someone who cares, mistaking that caring for failure. It was never failure. It was always the starting line. One more thing. You chose to watch this video. Out of everything available to you, every distraction, every scroll, every easier option, you chose to spend 20 minutes with the question of whether you're behind. You chose to sit with the discomfort of it. You chose to look at it directly instead of numbing it. That is the behavior of someone who is paying attention to their own life, which is rarer than you think and more valuable than you know. Some part of you, the part that clicked on this, the part that stayed through all of it, the part that's still here right now, already knew the answer. It already knew you weren't behind. It just needed to hear the case made out loud. It needed the evidence laid out, and it needed someone to say it clearly, without hedging, so it could stop arguing with the louder voice that kept insisting otherwise. So, you're not behind. You were never behind. You were building something in the dark, without a blueprint, without a guarantee, and you kept going anyway. That's the whole point. You watched this video because some part of you already knew you weren't behind, and it wanted permission to say so out loud. That part was right. It was always right, and it was just waiting for you to listen. And hey, if you like this video, don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button. Also, let me know your thoughts on what I just shared. Oh, and there's more. I've just started a Patreon to help support these videos and connect with you more directly. Check out the link in the description if you'd like to join.